She whispered, "Don't remove the cloth." But he did, and the truth was not human. Night lived in the lower decks like a wet animal. Pipes sweated. Fans hummed. The floor felt slick under worn boots. Jace moved through the narrow path with a small lamp and a quiet mind. He checked the gauge, logged the pH, noted a soft rattle in the intake elbow to fix tomorrow. He worked alone by choice. Fewer eyes, fewer talks, fewer mistakes. The city above breathed because this place did not stop. Water in, oxygen out. If he did it right, no one noticed. That was the job. Keep the roots alive. Then a sound cut through the fan noise. Short, human, a breath. Jace killed his lamp. He held still. Another breath. Wet cloth dragged across metal. He moved to the edge of the nutrient canal and lowered the light, careful with the beam. The glow slid across algae, across grating, then found a shape in the shadow. A woman crouched by the overflow lip. Skin like deep violet. Hair the green of a stormy wave. A strip of soaked industrial fabric clung to her chest and hips. Water dripped from her elbows to the metal with soft ticks. Her eyes were bright gold. They locked on him like a trapped animal. "Please," she said. Her voice was thin, scraped. "Don't take the cloth off." He scanned the corridor. No patrol. No footsteps. Cameras here tracked flow rates, not faces. He kept his hands open at his sides. "You're freezing," he said. "That cloth is not helping. I'll get you warm." "If they see me," she whispered, "I disappear." "They won't." He believed it as he spoke. He knew this dead angle. He had designed the steam reroute 2 years ago to protect his sensor panel. It also left a gap in coverage. He filed the thought and moved. He slid his tool bag under her feet to lift them out of the cold stream. He worked the sticky edge of fabric free from the grate. She flinched, but did not pull away. He kept his voice calm. He used the tone he saved for spill panics and pipe bursts. "Name?" he asked. Not to push. To keep her awake. Silence. Then, Lyra. "Jace," he said. "I'm taking you upstairs." He took off his jacket. Heavy. Warm from his body. He wrapped it around her shoulders and lifted. She was lighter than he expected. Cold skin shook through the fabric into his arms. He carried her to the service lift. Water pooled at their feet. The panel counted floors. She watched the numbers like a prayer. "You should put me back," she said. "They scan. You will fail." He thought of the inspection rotation. Random sweeps were 2 levels below yesterday. His tier would come soon. Leaving her here was certain harm. Taking her was a measured risk. "I'll handle the scan," he said. He did not say how. The lift opened to a quiet hall. He pressed his shoulder to his door plate and felt the lock click. Inside, the room smelled of metal, citrus cleaner, and a clean green note from the tanks behind the wall. He set Lyra on a folded blanket by the heater. Her lips were blue. Her shivers came in hard waves now that danger had paused. "I need to get the wet things off," he said. "Fast. You tell me if anything hurts." Her hand gripped his wrist. Not hard. Clear. "Do not look at me like a thing." Understood. He placed a towel on her chest and kept his eyes on the work. He untied the knot at her shoulder. The fabric peeled with a soft tear. He moved the towel with steady hands, the way he did in emergency washdowns. Then the last of the cloth came free, and he saw what she was trying to hide. Her skin was not opaque. A faint light moved under it in thin lines along her collarbones, across her ribs, down her hips. The glow grew stronger when she breathed in, softer when she breathed out. Jace had read contraband reports about sequence mixes from decommissioned colonies. He had never seen one alive. His breath caught, not from disgust, from shock, from awe he did not invite. The beauty of it hit him before he could argue with himself. He put the towel around her and kept his hands efficient. "You're warming," he said. "Color looks better." She studied his face for the look she expected. Fear, hunger, shame. It was not there. He felt the pull to stare and refused it. He would not make her a show. He helped her sit. He dried her hair with short, firm passes. The heater sent a low stream of warm air over her shoulders. The shivering eased. "You said they scan," he asked. "Who are they for you?" "Purity Desk," she said. "Culture Watch. If they find variance, they erase it from the ledger. No record. No rations. You fall through the floor." "Where from?" "Oxygen mine in the troposphere. Shut last cycle. They tagged us for emotion drift and dermal light. Ordered transport. I did not report." "Anyone with you?" "No." He stood and gave her space. He turned his back, pulled a dark thermal robe from the closet, and set it within reach. Robe's there. I'm not looking. Fabric shifted. A belt tied. She cleared her throat. He turned. The sleeves hung past her hands. The hem brushed her calves. The towel sat under it, trapping heat. Her eyes still measured his distance, his hands, his posture. Ready to run. He respected it. He lit the stove. Sliced bluefin thin to cook fast. Oil snapped. Herb salt lifted a warm smell into the room. Lyra watched the pan like time itself lived there. Root network. He answered when she finally asked where he worked. Water in. Waste out. Oxygen stable. If I do it right, no one notices. Why help me, she said. He plated the fish and set one in her hands. Because leaving you would be a choice I'd have to live with. I prefer this one. They ate. Quiet helped. Color came back to her face. Her shoulders dropped a notch. She took the second piece and checked his eyes. He nodded. I was a rigger, she said at last. Wind skins on tower frames. They said I smiled too much. Then the light started. They said it proved the fault. Jace filed the facts. Skilled. Careful. Marked for a rule the city liked more than people. Remove risk. Remove noise. Good for pipes. Bad for lives. He washed the pan. Poured bitter frost seed coffee. We need to talk about the scan, she said, bracing. We will, he said. His mind was already ahead, mapping steps, listing failure modes, counting audit trails, weighing cost. His job had always been to keep systems alive. Tonight the system had a new part. Keep her warm. Make her real on the ledger. Keep the inspectors blind. He set the terminal on his lap. He did not act yet. He drew the plan in his head, line by line, until his pulse slowed and his hands were steady. Across the room, Lyra lay under the robe, breathing even. The light beneath her skin rose and fell like a quiet tide. Jace leaned back. He closed his eyes for 1 hour. Boots on. Jacket near. When he woke, he would break the rule that kept the city smooth, and he would do it so clean the water itself would hide the ripple. Morning came pale and cold. The fog outside pressed against the reinforced glass like a living thing. Jace opened his eyes slowly. He hadn't really slept, just drifted between half-thoughts and the quiet hum of the city's lungs. The heater whispered beside him. Across the small room, Lyra still slept on the folded blanket, robe drawn tight. Her skin no longer glowed as bright as before. In daylight, the light under her skin pulsed faintly, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Almost human now. Jace watched for a moment, trying to convince himself this was still real, that he had actually carried an outlawed being into his apartment and not dreamed it between pipe checks. The kettle clicked softly as he filled it with water. The noise woke her. Lyra blinked, confused, eyes darting around until they found him. Her muscles tensed. It's okay, he said quietly. You're safe. She sat up slowly, clutching the robe. You didn't report me. No, he said. Wasn't planning to. Why? He didn't answer right away. Steam hissed as he poured boiling water into 2 mugs. Because I wanted to know who you were before someone else decided for me. She stared at the rising steam. You risk everything for that. He handed her the cup. Small city, he said. Big risks just look bigger because no one takes them. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she took a sip. The heat put a faint flush back into her face. For the first time, she didn't look afraid, just tired. Jace sat across from her, elbows on his knees. You said you came from the oxygen mines. How did you end up here? She looked into the cup. After the mine shut down, they said we were defective. They sent enforcers to test us, said they'd purify the records. I escaped on a freight barge heading for Spire. I thought maybe here, I could work again. She paused, voice hardening. The moment I passed the scanners, they sounded alarms. I ran. He nodded slowly. He had heard rumors before, miners disappearing after purity evaluations. But hearing it in her voice made it feel heavier. You said they erase people, he said. How does that work? They don't kill you, she said softly. They rewrite your identity as material loss. Like a broken part. You don't die, you just stop existing. The words sank deep. He took a sip of his own bitter coffee, letting it burn his throat. So when you said you'd disappear, you meant it literally. Lyra nodded. He stood, pacing slowly. Then we'll make sure you don't. Her golden eyes lifted. You can't fight the system. Maybe not, he said, but I can make it blink. He turned toward the console. The idea that had started in his mind last night began taking shape. He could alter his building's oxygen consumption logs. Shift readings. Add a margin wide enough to cover one more breathing body. The inspectors would never notice. They trusted the data more than the people who kept it. Lyra watched him work, her hands still wrapped around the cup. "Why do you live alone?" she asked after a while. He didn't look up. "Because silence doesn't argue back." "That's not an answer." He smiled faintly. "It's the only one I've got." She studied him for a moment longer. "People fear what they can't fix," she said. "But you don't look afraid." "I am," he said honestly. "I've just learned to move anyway." For a while, the room was quiet except for the hum of the hydro tanks. Then the soft chime of the intercom broke it. A voice echoed faintly through the hall. "Attention, lower deck sectors 29 through 31. Genome inspection begins at 0800. Prepare for verification." Lyra froze. The cup slipped slightly in her hands. Jace's face didn't change, but inside his pulse spiked. "They're close," he said. "2 floors below." Her voice was a whisper. "Then I should go." "You won't make it 2 corridors," he said. "They'll scan everything between here and the ducts." "I can't stay here," she said sharply. "If they find me, you'll lose everything." He met her gaze. "I knew that the moment I lifted you from that canal." Her eyes searched his face, not for logic, but for motive. "Why would you risk that for me?" He didn't answer. He didn't have an answer that would make sense. Instead, he walked to the terminal and started typing. The screen lit his face in pale blue. "We'll need to adjust your records," he said. "If they come this way, the system will see you as part of this unit." Lyra frowned. "That's not possible." "It's not legal," he corrected, "but possible." He brought up the resource distribution files. Dozens of columns of numbers scrolled past. Oxygen output, nutrient flow, CO2 intake. To anyone else, meaningless data. To him, a language he had written. "See this?" he said, pointing at a blinking value. "If I raise this oxygen yield by 0.3%, it'll look like the tanks are slightly overproducing. That surplus will balance the consumption you add." She looked lost, but nodded anyway. "You're rewriting the system?" "I'm persuading it to tell a better story," he said. The kettle clicked again. The air in the room felt thicker now, charged with something between fear and trust. "Jace," she said softly, "if they find out what you're doing." He looked at her, steady. "Then they'll have to erase 2 people instead of 1. She held his gaze for a long, silent moment. Then she whispered, "You're either brave or broken." "Maybe both," he said. Outside, the fog rolled heavier around the glass, swallowing the light from the upper towers. Inside, the small room glowed warm and quiet, a fragile island suspended between danger and defiance. Jace leaned back in his chair. "They'll start scanning in a few hours. Rest while you can." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. She lay back down on the cot, eyes half open, watching him as he typed. Each keystroke drew them closer to something neither could name yet, a promise or a sentence. And above them, the city kept breathing, unaware that in one small apartment, a man was rewriting its perfect order, one forbidden heartbeat at a time. The day moved slow, like the city itself was holding its breath. Jay spent the next hours checking readouts on his console. The hum of pumps and fans filled the apartment, steady and calm. But beneath the calm, the system stirred. Inspection drones were climbing floor by floor, sweeping the spire for genetic faults. Every few minutes, a low vibration ran through the walls, the sound of scanners moving closer. Lyra sat by the heater, arms wrapped tight around her knees. She had stopped glowing now, her skin dull under the dim light. "They're near," she whispered. "I know." Jace didn't look up from the console. His fingers moved fast, editing small numbers that no one would ever notice. Oxygen ratios, waste output, temperature levels. He had done this kind of work 1,000 times before, fixing what others broke. But this was different. Every keystroke could mean life or death. Lyra stood and crossed to him. "What happens if they come here?" "Then we play our part," he said. "You'll stand behind me. Say nothing. Let the scanner read you through me." "Read me through you?" she repeated, confused. Jace glanced up. "The system believes in bonds. Families. If I log you as my partner, your variance hides behind mine. The scanner will see one identity instead of 2. Her eyes widened. "That's illegal." He gave a faint smile. "Everything worth doing here is." She hesitated. "You'd tie your record to mine? If they find out, you'll be erased too." "I've lived invisible long enough," he said simply. "Might as well vanish for something that matters." The words hit her harder than she expected. She wanted to argue, but the steady look in his eyes made it useless. He had already chosen. Outside, the intercom crackled to life. Genome Verification Patrol entering Sector 31. Prepare for inspection. Lyra flinched. The sound felt like it was coming from inside her chest. Jace stood, smoothing his jacket. They're 2 levels away. Then we still have time to hide me. No, he said sharply. If they search and find no one else registered here, they'll flag me for a false reading. The safest place for you is right here, in plain sight. She stared at him, realizing how calm he sounded. It wasn't bravado. It was control, the kind that comes from years of fear turned into habit. He turned off the heater to keep the temperature steady, then dimmed the lights until the room matched the average brightness in inspection reports. Every small detail mattered. Sit, he said. Stay close to the wall when they enter. Her voice shook. And if they notice the glow? They won't, he said quickly. You've cooled down. Your pulse is stable. Just breathe slow. The hum of drones outside grew louder now. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Metal on metal. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would betray her. Jace looked at her once, nodded, then faced the door. 3 knocks. Slow. Hollow. He pressed his palm to the door plate. It slid open with a hiss. 2 inspectors stood there, both dressed in pale suits, faces covered by white masks with glass lenses. Their voices were mechanical. Routine genome verification, the taller one said. Step aside. Jace nodded. Of course. They entered, scanners humming softly. The shorter inspector ran a device along the wall, collecting air samples. The other raised a handheld reader. Bonded partner on file. Yes, Jace said evenly. She's here. The inspector turned toward the wall. Bring her forward. Lyra stepped out slowly. Her robe hung loose, sleeves over her hands. She kept her head bowed. The scanner's blue light swept across her arm. For a long second, no one breathed. Then, a soft chime. The scanner blinked green. Bond confirmed. Genetic variants clear. Jace exhaled silently. The inspector lowered the device. Efficient home, he said. Low energy output. Clean data. Thank you, Jace replied. They turned and left without another word. The door sealed behind them. For a few moments, neither Jace nor Lyra moved. The silence was thick. Then Lyra let out a shaky breath. Her knees buckled, and she caught herself on the counter. They didn't see me. Jace reached out, steadying her shoulder. Her skin was warm through the robe. No, he said softly. They didn't. Tears filled her golden eyes, but she blinked them away. You saved me. He wanted to say it wasn't over, that the system always checked twice. But he couldn't bring himself to break the fragile relief in her face. Get some rest, he said instead. We'll plan our next step in the morning. That night, the city above them kept humming, perfect and blind. Jace sat on the couch with the consoled dark in his lap. Lyra slept near the heater, her breathing even, her light faint but alive. He watched her for a long time, wondering what line he had just crossed, and how many more he would cross before this was over. For the first time in years, he wasn't sure which side of the system he stood on. But as he looked at her, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He couldn't let them take her, not while he was still breathing. The city's morning light was a dull, ghostly white. It filtered weakly through fog and glass, painting Jace's apartment in pale tones of silver. The heater hummed quietly, blending with the constant thrum of the pumps below. Everything looked calm. Too calm. Jace hadn't slept. He sat by the console, staring at the blank screen, the last words from the night before replaying in his head. They didn't see me. He knew that peace wouldn't last. Nothing ever stayed hidden for long in Eris Spire. The system didn't forget, it waited. Behind him, Lyra stirred awake. Her hair, once tangled and wild, now fell in soft waves over her shoulders. The faint glow under her skin was dimmer than before, hidden beneath the robe. She sat up slowly, watching him. You didn't rest again, she said quietly. I couldn't, Jace replied without turning. They passed inspection last night. But that doesn't mean we're safe. She frowned. You think they'll come back? He finally looked at her, his eyes shadowed by exhaustion. They always do. Random re-verifications, data audits. They check anything that feels off. Lyra's voice trembled slightly. Off like me. Off like us, he corrected. For a moment, neither spoke. The room was small, but the silence inside it felt endless. Jace turned back to the console. His fingers moved quickly, typing strings of code into the system's registry portal. He knew he had to bury the false bond record deeper, make it harder to trace. Lyra rose from the cot and walked closer. "You're doing it again," she said softly. "Fixing everything yourself." He gave a small, humorless smile. "That's the only thing I know how to do." "You can't keep rewriting the system every time it looks at us," she said. "What if one day it looks harder?" He paused mid-typing. "Then we find another way." Her golden eyes searched his face. "You talk like you've done this before." "I have," he admitted quietly. "A long time ago." "For who?" He didn't answer at first. His eyes were fixed on the flickering light of the screen. Then finally, in a low voice, he said, "Someone I couldn't save." Lyra didn't ask more. She didn't need to. His voice carried the truth, a story too heavy to tell twice. Outside, the intercom broke the quiet again. "Attention, residents. System recalibration scheduled for 1800 hours. Temporary power fluctuations expected." Jace's head lifted instantly. "Recalibration," he muttered. "That means a full data sync. What does that mean for us?" "It means every bond, every entry, every anomaly gets rechecked," he said. "If our data's flagged, they'll trace it here." Her face went pale. "Then we have to leave." "Leave?" He gave a tired laugh. "There's nowhere to go. Every corridor has scanners. Every lift tracks movement. We'd be caught before we reached the surface." "Then what do we do?" she whispered. He stood, thinking fast. "There's one option. I can mask our data behind a maintenance protocol. Mark this apartment as under system repair. It'll freeze our record for the entire recalibration." She blinked. "Can you do that?" He met her eyes. "I can try." For the next hour, the only sound in the room was the rhythmic tapping of keys. Lyra watched from the side, trying to read his face. She could see the tension in his jaw, the focus in his eyes. He wasn't just working, he was fighting. Finally, the console beeped softly. A line of text flashed across the screen. "System override accepted. Maintenance exemption active." Jace exhaled slowly, leaning back. It worked. Lyra's shoulders sagged in relief. "Then we're safe." "For now," he said. "They'll skip this sector during the recalibration." She moved closer, her voice softer now. "You've risked everything for me, again." He looked at her, really looked. The light from the console painted her skin in faint blue, her golden eyes reflecting it like molten metal. "I didn't plan for this," he said. "I just couldn't watch them erase another person." "You keep saying that," she murmured. "But maybe what you really mean is, you couldn't let me disappear." He didn't deny it. His silence said enough. She reached out and placed her hand over his. Her touch was warm, steady. "You don't have to do this alone, Jace." He stared at their joined hands. "I've been alone so long. I don't remember what the other option feels like." "Then start remembering," she said gently. The fog outside pressed closer against the window. Beyond it, the city glowed, perfect, polished, blind. Inside, two people sat in the dim light, rewriting what the system had already decided. For the first time in years, Jace didn't feel like a cog in someone else's design. He felt awake. But under that flicker of hope, something darker stirred, a quiet warning in his gut. Because he knew the truth about perfect systems. They didn't like being rewritten. And when they noticed, they always came back to erase the mistake. The following morning, the city felt wrong. The hum of the pumps had a slight tremor, the fans groaned heavier, and even the lights in Jace's apartment flickered every few seconds. Something was shifting in the system, something big. Jace was already awake, standing in front of his console with dark circles under his eyes. Lines of red error codes scrolled across the screen. He had been trying to override them for an hour, but the system was resisting. Behind him, Lyra stood silently near the heater, her robe wrapped tight. "What's happening?" she asked. He didn't turn. "They're updating the registry nodes. The recalibration triggered an automated sync. My maintenance lock won't hold if the system tries to rewrite the entire data chain." In English, Jace. He exhaled. "It means the spire is cleaning itself, and it's about to find us." Lyra stepped closer, fear creeping into her voice. "Can you stop it? I can slow it down. Maybe confuse it long enough for us to move." "Move where?" He paused. The words came out heavy. "Down." Her eyes widened. "The lower decks? That's suicide. The air down there is half toxic. No one lives that deep." "No one human," he said. The two words hung between them like a threat and a promise. He turned back to the console. His fingers flew over the keys. I can reroute power from the hydro ducts. If I overload the local grid, it'll trigger a blackout in this sector. The system will think it's a hardware fault, not a data anomaly. Lyra watched as warning symbols began to flash across the screen. You'll shut down the whole block. That's the point. She grabbed his wrist. You'll get caught. He looked at her hand on his skin, then at her eyes. Lyra, they're already coming. This is the only way to stay invisible. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she released him slowly. Then do it. Jace's jaw tightened. He pressed the execute command. The lights went out instantly. The hum of fans died. The world dropped into silence. Then came the deep, thunderous sound of the emergency circuits switching. The floor vibrated. From outside, alarms wailed in the distance. Jace grabbed a small pack from the wall, tools, rations, a data key. We have 5 minutes before backup power restores. Get ready. Lyra nodded, pulling on a pair of worn boots he'd given her earlier. Where will we go? There's an access tunnel under the east hydro tanks, he said, grabbing his jacket. It leads to the underlayers. If we can reach the old oxygen corridors, the scanners won't track us. The air's rough, but breathable. And after that, he didn't answer, because there was no after yet, just the next breath. The emergency lights flickered faint red as they stepped into the corridor. The city, once perfect and silent, now pulsed with distant alarms. Shadows of drones moved behind the fogged glass. They moved fast, keeping low. Jace led the way through maintenance routes few citizens even knew existed. He had built half of them years ago, before the system stopped needing people like him. As they passed a broken section of piping, Lyra stumbled, catching herself on his shoulder. Her hand glowed faintly under the dim light. It's reacting, she whispered. To what? Fear, she said. It always does. Jace stared for a moment, mesmerized. Even in danger, she looked alive in a way the world around them never did. They reached a narrow hatch. Jace keyed in a code manually. The door opened with a metallic groan, revealing a dark shaft leading down. The air smelled of rust and salt. He climbed in first, helping her follow. Careful, he said. It's slick. As they descended, the noise from above grew distant, replaced by dripping water and the deep echo of machinery far below. After what felt like forever, they reached a graded platform. The tunnel opened into a huge chamber filled with rows of silent filters and pipes large enough to walk through. The underlayers. Forgotten and alive. Lyra looked around in awe. It's like a skeleton, the city's bones. Exactly, Jace said, scanning the shadows. And bones don't get inspected. They crossed the platform and entered a smaller service corridor. Every few steps, Jace checked his handheld meter. The readings flickered but stayed stable. After several minutes, they stopped beside a rusted valve. He crouched, unscrewing a small panel and plugging in his data key. The device blinked weakly. What are you doing? Lyra asked. Hiding us, he said. This terminal connects to the root grid. I'll mask our location as part of a calibration test. She crouched beside him. You sound calm, like you've done this before. He didn't look at her. Calm isn't real. It's just practice. Lyra studied his face, the set jaw, the tired eyes. You never stop thinking, do you? Thinking keeps me alive. Maybe, she said softly. But it's also killing you. He froze at that, just for a heartbeat, then went back to work. The data key blinked green. The system accepted the override. For now, they were ghosts. Lyra leaned back against the wall, breathing deeply. The glow under her skin steadied again, no longer flickering from fear. You did it. Jace didn't answer right away. He was staring at the code lines on his screen, all green. But then, one flickered red for a second before vanishing. He frowned. What is it? She asked. Nothing, he said quickly. A false ping. But deep down, he knew better. The system had noticed the breach, even if it hadn't reacted yet. It was learning. He stood and closed the panel. We move again soon, he said. Lyra looked up at him. Jace, how long can we keep running? He met her eyes, tired, determined, burning faintly with something human that the city had long forgotten. As long as it takes, he said, until there's no place left to hide, or until the system stops pretending it owns us. The fog shifted through the cracks above, casting faint beams of light over the metal floor. Somewhere far overhead, alarms still echoed. Down here, though, The air was still. And for the first time, the city wasn't the only thing that was alive. Hours passed in the tunnels. The underlayers of Eris spires stretched endlessly, a maze of dripping pipes, rusted beams, and forgotten machines that still breathed for the city above. The sound of rushing water echoed through the dark, slow, steady, alive. Jace walked in front, flashlight flickering weakly in the mist. Every few minutes, he checked the handheld meter on his wrist. Oxygen levels low. Pressure stable. We stay close to the main lines, he said. The airflow here is recycled. Safer than it smells. Behind him, Lyra followed quietly. The faint glow under her skin lit the walls in pale gold, making the corroded pipes shimmer. This place feels haunted, she said softly. It is, Jace replied. Every part of this spire has ghosts. The city just doesn't record them. They reached an open chamber, vast, circular, with thick cables coiled across the floor. A forgotten reactor room. Dust floated through beams of light coming from a cracked vent above. It was strangely peaceful, in a broken way. Lyra sat on an old crate, catching her breath. Her robe was torn, boots slick with grime. How long do you think we can stay here? Until the system resets, Jace said. Once the recalibration ends, the upper decks will stabilize. We'll use that to move. She looked up. Move where? He hesitated. The surface. Her eyes widened. That's suicide, Jace. The surface is poison. Everyone says it's dead. He gave a faint, tired smile. I've been there. Years ago. The air's rough, but it's not dead. Not everywhere. Silence fell between them again. Heavy, but not cold. Only the slow rhythm of the city's breath filled the space. Finally, Lyra spoke. You built all this, she said. The pipes, the systems, the whole network. You gave the city life. He looked down at his hands. I gave it control. There's a difference. You regret it. He nodded slowly. When I designed these routes, I thought I was building something pure, perfect. But perfection kills everything it touches. The moment the system learned how to clean itself, it started cleaning us. Lyra studied his face, the deep exhaustion behind his calm. You think you can fix it? I can't fix something that doesn't want to be human. Her golden eyes softened. Then maybe that's why you found me. To remember what being human feels like. He didn't answer, but something in his chest tightened. He turned away, checking the reactor's console. Most of the circuits were fried, but the old battery cells still hummed with weak energy. We can use this to recharge the data key, he said. If the system pings us again, we'll reroute from here. She stood beside him, her glow reflecting off the metal panels. You never stop planning. I can't afford to. You can't afford not to feel either, she said quietly. Not anymore. That made him stop. He turned to her, meeting her gaze. Feeling doesn't keep us alive. No, she said softly, but it gives us a reason to try. For a long time, they just stood there, two figures surrounded by the endless machinery that once defined their world. The sound of dripping water became almost like rain. Then Jace's wrist meter beeped sharply. Red light blinked. Power spike, he muttered. The system's scanning the lower ducts. Lyra tensed. Down here. He nodded. It's looking for signal leaks. My blackout didn't fool it for long. Can it see us? Not yet, but it will. He unplugged the data key and stuffed it into his jacket. We have to move. They ran through narrow corridors, their footsteps splashing in shallow pools. The air grew colder. The metallic scent of ozone filled the tunnels, a sign the drones were close. A soft hum echoed behind them, growing louder. A beam of blue light swept across the wall. Lyra gasped. They found us. Jace grabbed her hand. Keep running. They turned down a maintenance shaft, climbed over a broken gate, and ducked into a side chamber filled with rusted tanks. The drone's light passed over the doorway, searching. Jace pressed her against the wall, holding his breath. Her glowing skin dimmed as she tried to suppress the light beneath it. For several seconds, the only sound was the steady thump of their hearts. Then, silence. The drone moved away. Lyra let out a trembling breath. That was close. Too close, he whispered. They're tracing body heat. The next one won't miss. He turned his wrist display toward her. The signal map pulsed red, dozens of dots spreading through the tunnels. They're swarming the lower decks. We need to get above the main vent lines before they seal this section. She looked at him, fear flickering in her golden eyes. We'll never make it in time. He met her gaze, firm, unshaken. Then we make them believe we did. What do you mean? He crouched by the floor panel, unscrewing it to reveal a network of coolant pipes. If I reverse the flow, it'll release a heat surge on the far end. The drones will think we're escaping through the south tunnel. Won't that overload the system? It'll burn the line, he said, and every alarm with it. Lyra hesitated. That could destroy the whole sector. He looked up at her, eyes hard. Then maybe the system will finally feel something. Without waiting, he twisted the valve. Steam hissed, filling the air with white fog. The floor vibrated as the pipes heated. Alarms began to echo faintly in the distance. Distant, then closer, then everywhere. Jace grabbed her arm. Move. They sprinted through the tunnels as red lights flashed all around them. Behind them, the coolant line exploded, releasing a roar of vapor and fire that swallowed the corridor. The shock wave slammed into them, throwing both to the ground. For a moment, Jace couldn't breathe. His ears rang. His side burned. But when he looked up, Lyra was there, coughing alive. Her glow shimmered through the smoke, faint but steady. You okay? He gasped. She nodded weakly. You're insane. Maybe, he said, helping her stand. But we're still here. The tunnel behind them collapsed, sealing the path. Ahead, faint light filtered through a vertical shaft. Fresh air, thin, but real. He pointed. There. The old maintenance lift. It leads straight to the outer decks. Lyra looked up at the narrow passage disappearing into darkness. You're sure? No, he said. But it's the only way left. They began climbing, hand over hand, through the cold metal rungs. Below them, the city groaned like a wounded giant. Sparks rained down from ruptured pipes. Halfway up, Lyra stopped. Jace. Yeah. If we make it out, she said, voice shaking. What happens next? He looked down at her. Grime streaked across her face, light flickering beneath her skin, defiance still burning in her eyes. Then, he said, we stop running. And start what? He smiled faintly. Living. Above them, the hatch glowed faintly with sunlight. Real, natural light, filtering through the cracks of the world they had forgotten. And as they climbed toward it, leaving the ghost city behind, the system below screamed in digital rage. Unable to understand why, for the first time in centuries, someone had chosen freedom over perfection. The hatch creaked open with a scream of metal. A rush of air poured in, sharp, cold, wild. Jace squinted against the brightness as he climbed out, pulling Lyra after him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world above stretched endlessly in every direction. A wide expanse of cloud hung low, glowing gold beneath a pale morning sun. The air shimmered faintly with mist, heavy with salt and wind. Below, the ocean moved like a living mirror, silver waves colliding against the spire's dark supports. Lyra stood frozen. Her eyes widened, her lips parted. It's real. Yeah, Jace said softly, breathing hard. It's real. The surface, the forbidden world. For decades, the city had told them it was poison, a graveyard of the past. But the wind that touched his skin was alive, cold, and pure. The sunlight felt strange but honest, not filtered through glass or measured by systems. Lyra took a slow step forward onto the steel platform. The light hit her face, and her skin began to glow, not like a secret anymore, but like it belonged here. The lines beneath her skin pulsed softly, gold merging with sunlight until they were one. I can feel it, she whispered. The air, it's heavy but clean. It's not what they said. They say a lot of things to keep people from climbing, Jace said. She turned to him, smiling faintly. And you climbed anyway. He laughed quietly, but the sound carried something else. Disbelief, relief, and something close to peace. Guess I got tired of fixing things that were never broken. They walked along the narrow platform that circled the spire's upper structure. The steel was old, corroded, and trembling under their weight, but it held. Far ahead, a maintenance rail stretched outward, leading to the edge where a cargo beacon pulsed red against the sky. That's the transport route, Jace said. If the beacon's still live, we can signal the surface ferries. They'll think it's a supply request. Will they come? He looked at her, eyes half shadowed by the rising sun. If anyone's still out there, they will. The wind roared stronger now. It whipped through Lyra's hair, tossing green strands across her face. She tilted her head back, letting it touch her, breathing deep. For the first time since he found her, she didn't look like she was hiding from the world. She looked like she belonged to it. Jace watched her quietly. Something stirred inside him, something old, something he had buried long ago when he chose silence over loss. You were right, she said suddenly. About what? Perfection kills everything it touches. She looked at him. But maybe that's why you found me. You built something perfect once. Now you're learning how to live in something broken. He didn't speak, but the faint smile on his lips said enough. The wind shifted, bringing the smell of salt and ozone. Far below, faint lights blinked across the ocean's surface. Unmanned drones drifting between waves, still loyal to a dead system. Jace turned to the beacon terminal. It was half-rusted, but the power cores still hummed faintly. He opened the panel, rewiring the signal port. Lyra crouched beside him. What are you doing? Sending a ping, he said. An old distress code. If any of the surface networks survived, they'll read it as a human signal. And if the city intercepts it, then it'll think we died trying to escape. Either way, we're free. Her golden eyes softened. You always find a way to break the rules. It's what I'm good at. He powered the beacon. The red light turned white, pulsing in slow rhythm. A message sent into the endless horizon, 2 lives refusing to vanish. They stood side by side, watching the light blink against the sky. For a moment, the entire world seemed to breathe with them. Lyra reached for his hand. What happens now? Jace looked at their joined hands, hers glowing faintly, his rough and scarred. He squeezed gently. Now, he said, we stop surviving. And start. He smiled. Living. The wind tore across the spire, carrying their words into the clouds. The beacon light flashed once more, then twice, faster, a reply. Lyra gasped. Someone heard us. Jace looked toward the horizon. Through the mist, a faint silhouette moved. A ship, low and wide, gliding across the sea. Its lights flickered, alive and human. A real ship, not a patrol drone, not a ghost of the system. He exhaled slowly, a weight leaving his chest. Looks like the world isn't as empty as they said. Lyra smiled through tears. You see, Jace? They couldn't erase everything. The transport drew closer, wind whipping harder around them. The beacon's hum deepened. Jace turned to her one last time. Once we step on that ship, he said, there's no going back. No hiding. No city. Just us. She met his gaze without fear. Then let's go. They moved toward the edge together, the wind fierce, the sun blazing behind the clouds. The city that once ruled them shrank below, a glittering cage pretending to be paradise. And as they stepped into the light, Jace realized something simple and true. Freedom wasn't perfect. It was raw. It was loud. It was human. The wind roared like applause as the ship descended through the mist. The beacon's pulse merged with the rising sun, and for the first time, Ares Spire's flawless system failed to notice 2 of its ghosts slipping away. Not erased. Not hidden. Alive.